We tend to think of casual conversation as a spontaneous flow of thoughts. But if you record a chat and examine it closely, you find a highly structured system governed by measurable rules. Extracting and analyzing those rules is the exact empirical science known as conversation analysis. Every turn is a performance. Speakers use talk to make decisions, establish dominance, and negotiate relationships. This approach emerged in the 1960s, built on the back of sociologist Harold Garfinkel and his concept of ethnomethodology. Garfinkel argued that social order is not a pre-existing environment that humans just walk into. It is something we actively construct, turn by turn, through shared, unspoken rules of interaction. Three scholars, Harvey Sachs, Emanuel Shegloff, and Gail Jefferson, took this philosophical premise and applied it directly to the mechanical mechanics of real recorded audio. They proved that casual conversation is never random, chaotic noise. It is a precise architecture of social behavior that can be mapped and measured. The primary rule governing this architecture is turn-taking. One person speaks at a time, building their turn using distinct blocks of speech called turn constructional units, or TCUs. These units function mechanically. A speaker constructs a unit of talk explicitly signaling completion. This allows smooth handoffs with almost zero overlap. These handoffs rely on adjacency pairs, the rule that specific statements demand immediate responses. A question expects an answer. A greeting expects a greeting back. If the second part of that pair does not arrive, the silence becomes structural data. The absence is immediately noticeable to the participants, who will stop to figure out why the expected response failed to land. Within these pairs, responses are categorized as either preferred, the expected, easy answer, like accepting an invitation, or dispreferred, which is the unexpected or difficult response. Because a dispreferred response, like rejecting an invitation, disrupts the social flow, it is mechanically delayed. The speaker will usually hesitate, pause, and offer an explanation to maintain the structural order of the interaction. People string these pairs into longer chains through sequence organization. Speakers routinely use pre-sequences, like asking, "Are you busy?" to test the waters before initiating a primary action, ensuring the chain remains intact. When a breakdown in understanding does occur, the system relies on repair. The mechanics show a strong preference for self-correction. If someone misspeaks, listeners will typically pause, giving the speaker the floor to fix the error themselves before stepping in. Finally, every interaction requires an opening and closing sequence. Closing is uniquely difficult. Both speakers must deploy mutual agreement markers, words like "okay" or "all right," to explicitly synchronize the termination of the conversation. Together, these components include turns. They rely on adjacency pairs, they are organized into sequences, and they utilize structural repairs, operating as the invisible physics engine that keeps human interaction from collapsing into social chaos. The discovery of this physics engine began with Harvey Sachs. While analyzing tape recordings at a suicide prevention hotline, Sachs realized that even the most high-stress interactions possessed a discoverable scientific order. Sachs's closest collaborator, Emanuel Shegloff, expanded the discipline by mapping exactly how these sequences are organized and connected across individual turns. But to study audio at a granular level, they needed a specialized analytical instrument. That instrument was developed by Gail Jefferson. The system logs the physical delivery of speech, the volume, the speed, the sharp breaths, and the exact points of overlap. Look at the notation markers.
You will see decimals for measured pauses, a dot for micropauses, equal signs indicating latching where there is zero gap between turns, brackets for overlapping talk, and colons mapping prolonged sounds. Under this framework, a 0.2 of a second pause is not background noise. It is the literal load-bearing architecture of the conversation. To test this theoretical tool, we can apply it to a formal clinical setting. This transcript of a routine medical consultation operates on a strict question-answer structural format between the doctor and the patient. This layout exposes an institutional power dynamic. The doctor strictly holds the interactional floor, determining exactly what information is relevant and initiating every sequence. The diagnosis is driven by three specific adjacency pairs: the initial greeting exchange, the core question and answer diagnostic phase, and the concluding advice and acknowledgement phase. We can identify the precise structural transition marker. In line 7, the doctor says, "Okay." This explicitly closes the diagnosis sequence and pivots the interaction into the treatment phase. Notice the extreme level of fluency in this text. There are 0 recorded self-repairs, no hesitations, and no instances of overlapping speech. This unrepaired mechanical flow proves a highly efficient transfer of data built entirely upon an asymmetrical distribution of institutional power. Contrast that clinical efficiency against a comedic conflict to see how the methodology handles extreme interactional stress. This interaction comes from the British comedy Fawlty Towers, featuring Basil Fawlty, the aggressive hotel owner, and Manuel, his subordinate employee. Here, the transcript highlights a massive volume of overlapping talk and constant interruptions, marking a total structural breakdown. The adjacency pairs are entirely combative. Every claim Manuel makes is instantly met with a rejection from Basil. When Manuel claims he is getting better, Basil responds with, "No, you don't." This is a dispreferred response, but unlike normal conversational rules, Basil delivers it with 0 delay or softening, establishing deep hostility. The text logs 6 separate instances of repair. Manuel's lines are choked with cutoffs and abandoned, overlapping attempts to defend himself. Basil finalizes his dominance through 2 severe violations of conversational norms. He deploys a nonverbal shushing sound to force Manuel off the floor, and then executes a forced other-completed repair, making Manuel repeat Basil's own corrective statement. The comedy and the conflict do not exist in a vacuum. They are derived directly from the deliberate, aggressive violation of normal conversational mechanics. This reliance on naturally occurring data removes researcher bias, providing a high-resolution map for institutional analysis. This precision gives researchers the ability to diagnose and improve communication workflows in high-stakes environments, from hospital wards to active courtrooms. But the methodology has severe limitations. Using the Jefferson notation requires massive specialized training, and transcribing even 1 minute of audio is an agonizingly time-consuming process. Because it is highly specific, it struggles to generalize broadly. It has historically ignored nonverbal body language, and it faces immense challenges when applied to modern digital text communication. Even with those limitations, the core thesis of the discipline remains intact. Talk is an invisible architecture governed by shared patterns that humans deploy entirely intuitively. The ultimate legacy of Sachs, Shegloff, and Jefferson is the proof that human communication, no matter how chaotic it sounds on the surface, possesses a rigorous, discoverable, and beautiful order.